You can trust your friends, you can trust your family, you can even trust yourself. Can't you? This is Pantheon mythology, and this is the monsters who wear our faces. If you too want to be a monster, check out Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand inspired by myths, folklore and legends. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot, link in the description. We cling to the idea that our identity is constant, an anchor in the chaos of life. We wake up expecting to be the same person, to recognize the face in the mirror, to remember our own story. Shapeshifters shatter this illusion. They whisper a terrifying question. What if you changed without your control? Imagine waking up one morning and looking in the mirror, only to see a stranger staring back. Or worse, to feel a creeping sense of unease, a feeling that something fundamental has shifted within you, and you're no longer quite yourself. This is the primal fear at the heart of shapeshifter mythology, the fear of losing yourself. Consider the chilling tales of werewolves and skinwalkers. Their transformations aren't just physical. They strip away identity, leaving behind something unrecognizable. The horror isn't simply in becoming a monster. It's in the realization that you've lost yourself. You no longer remember who you were. The concept of lycanthropy, the transformation into a wolf, appears in ancient Greek and Roman texts as well as in medieval European folklore. Skinwalkers, on the other hand, are deeply rooted in Navajo traditions, serving as a cautionary tale within their cultural context. In many indigenous belief systems, shapeshifting is tied to animism, where the lines between human, animal, and spirit are fluid. This fear resonates deeply with our anxieties about identity. Shapeshifting myths tap into a primal dread, the loss of control. Aging, trauma, even mental illness can erode the self. What if, like those transformed by magic, we were slowly being overtaken by something we couldn't stop? Psychologically, Carl Jung's concept of the shadow self offers a fascinating interpretation. Perhaps shapeshifters represent the hidden, repressed parts of us, the aspects we deny or fear. These myths become a symbolic way to confront the darker corners of our psyche. Yet not all shapeshifting is a curse. Some myths present transformation as a power, a form of reinvention, escape, or transcendence. They reflect our deep-seated longing to break free from limitations, to become something more. This duality, the fear and the fascination, is what makes shapeshifters such enduring figures in our imagination. But what if the threat wasn't just internal? What if the real danger lurked in the faces of those closest to you? This is the chilling premise of the second fear, the fear of the other, disguised as us. Across countless cultures, tales persist of creatures that walk among us, mimicking human form while concealing sinister intent. Doppelgangers, changelings, mimics, beings that replace loved ones, infiltrate families, and turn familiar faces into masks of deception. Imagine the horror. A spouse, a child, a close friend suddenly acting strangely, their eyes holding an unfamiliar emptiness. A subtle shift in their demeanor that whispers, "This isn't them." If a monster looks like a monster, you can fight it. But how do you defend against something that looks exactly like you, or like someone you trust? How do you even know who to trust? This fear taps into a deep-seated psychological unease, what modern science calls the uncanny valley. We are wired to recognize human faces, to pick up on subtle cues of trust and familiarity. But when something almost looks human, yet something is slightly off, it triggers a visceral sense of dread. Horror films exploit this effect masterfully, but folklore understood it long before psychology gave it a name. These myths also serve as a powerful tool of social control, reinforcing the us versus them mentality. Skinwalker legends often warned against breaking tribal taboos, just as werewolf myths policed social behavior in medieval villages. Throughout history, those deemed different, witches, outcasts, foreigners, were accused of shapeshifting, of secretly infiltrating human society. The fear of the other, disguised as us, became a weapon of persecution, justifying violence against those who did not fit the norm. Many mythologies reflect this fear in their creatures. In Norse legend, the Draugr, undead beings, could shift forms to deceive and harm the living. Japanese folklore speaks of the Hangyokai, animals that gain supernatural powers and transform into humans. Trickster spirits found across the world use shapeshifting to disrupt social order, testing the boundaries of perception and trust. The most dangerous enemy isn't always the one who attacks openly. It's the one who wears a familiar face, the one who smiles, whispers reassurances, and waits for the perfect moment to strike. This is the insidious power of shapeshifting as a tool of deception, the ultimate betrayal. Throughout mythology, trickster gods, witches, and demons wield the ability to change form, not just to survive, but to manipulate and control. Loki, the Norse god of mischief, didn't just shapeshift, he used it as a weapon. He became a mare to sabotage the building of Asgard's walls, a fly to disrupt the forging of Mjolnir. Zeus, in Greek mythology, constantly altered his form to seduce and deceive mortals. Anansi, the West African trickster, used his transformations to weave elaborate cons and escape danger. In Egyptian mythology, Set, the god of chaos, took on different forms to spread discord. Witches, too, have long been linked to shapeshifting. European folklore is filled with tales of witches who transformed into alluring figures, beautiful women, handsome men, or innocent animals to lure victims into their traps. In Slavic mythology, Baba Yaga, capable of changing her form, was both a threat and a test to those who sought her out. In Japan, the kitsune, fox spirits, were known for their ability to shapeshift into human form, often tricking or seducing unsuspecting mortals. Ancient myths often equate shapeshifting with betrayal because deception, at its core, is a violation of trust. It shatters relationships, making us question what is real. But why is being deceived more terrifying than being attacked? Perhaps because the loss of trust in our own perception is the greatest horror of all. If you can't trust your senses, your memories, your own judgment, then what can you trust? This leads us to an unsettling question. If shapeshifting were real, would it be a curse or a power? Would it be a gift or a tool of destruction? Imagine the temptation to shed your identity at will to become anyone or anything. But in that endless fluidity, would you still be you? Or would you become nothing at all? Shapeshifting myths explore not just the loss of identity, but also the ethics of transformation. The animals chosen for shapeshifting in mythology often carry symbolic weight. Snakes, for instance, are linked to deception, while birds represent freedom. Some legends grant heroes the power to shapeshift to aid them on their journeys, proving that transformation isn't always sinister. But as history shows, those who shift too easily between faces, between identities, are often the ones feared most. Because at the end of the day, the greatest monsters aren't the ones lurking in the dark. They're the ones wearing the faces of those we trust. We often view these shapeshifter tales through the lens of modern storytelling, as metaphors, as psychological explorations, but for our ancestors, these were not just stories. These were stark realities, undeniable truths that shaped their understanding of the world. Shapeshifter myths were not merely entertainment, they were treated as fact, as explanations for the inexplicable, deeply interwoven with their spiritual and cosmological beliefs. This belief had dire consequences. Entire trials and executions were held for those suspected of transformation. Accusation of lycanthropy, of witchcraft, of being a skinwalker could lead to imprisonment, torture, and death. In medieval Europe, witch trials often centered on accusations of shapeshifting, with testimonies detailing alleged transformations into animals or demonic forms. These trials were not just legal proceedings, they were ritualistic acts of purification, attempts to purge the community of perceived supernatural threats. Even today, the power of these beliefs persist. Skinwalker myths, for instance, are still deeply ingrained in Navajo culture. Some refuse to speak of them aloud, fearing that even the utterance of their name could summon these malevolent beings, demonstrating the enduring power of oral tradition and cultural belief. But why did civilizations across the world hold such a profound fear of shapeshifters? Why were these beings not just monsters but existential threats? The answer lies in their ability to explain the unexplainable, to fill the gaps in their understanding of the world. Before the advent of modern science and psychology, sudden illnesses, unexplained disappearances, and disturbing changes in behavior were shrouded in mystery. In ancient Mesopotamia, the demon Pazuzu, capable of bringing both plagues and protection, was invoked to explain sudden illnesses. In Greek mythology, the sudden madness of a character could be attributed to the wrath of a god, or the work of a shapeshifting monster. Shapeshifters provided a convenient, albeit terrifying, explanation. Demonic possession, supernatural influence, and the power of transformation were the easiest answers in a world where the natural order seemed fragile. Furthermore, some shapeshifters weren't feared as literal monsters, but as omens, as signs that reality itself had become unstable. A sudden transformation, an unexpected appearance, could be interpreted as a disruption of the cosmic balance, a harbinger of impending doom. In Norse mythology, the appearance of monstrous beings or sudden transformations could signal the onset of Ragnarok, the end of the world. In many cultures, celestial phenomena, like eclipses or comets, were often seen as omens, but the sudden transformation of a person or animal could be even more unsettling, as it suggested that the very fabric of their reality was unraveling. These beliefs underscore the deep-seated anxiety of our ancestors, their fear of a world where the familiar could suddenly become alien, where the very fabric of reality could be torn asunder, reminding us that myth was not just a story, but a lived reality. What if the ancient fear of shapeshifters isn't just a relic of the past? What if it's a reflection of something we all do, something deeply ingrained in the human experience? Are we, in fact, the shapeshifters of our own lives? Consider how we change depending on who we're with. We adapt our behavior, our language, even our personalities to fit different social contexts. We tell white lies. We curate our online personas. We subtly shape our identities to present different faces to the world. In essence, we are constantly shifting, morphing, and transforming. This concept takes on a chilling new dimension in the digital age. Deepfakes, AI clones, and carefully constructed online personas blur the line between reality and illusion. The digital age's ability to create illusions and deceive mirrors the actions of trickster gods whose shapeshifting was often used to manipulate and deceive. Now, technology allows us to play those same tricks, blurring the lines of reality. We can create and manipulate images, videos, and even voices with unprecedented ease. What happens when we can no longer tell who or what is real? When the faces we see, the voices we hear, are nothing more than digital masks. Just as ancient oracles spoke in riddles, leaving their prophecies open to interpretation, the digital age presents us with a reality that is constantly shifting and ambiguous. We are left to decipher what is real and what is not, much like those who sought answers from the gods. This digital shapeshifting fuels a modern-day paranoia, a resurgence of conspiracy theories. The world is filled with whispers of reptilian humanoids, of clones replacing world leaders, of doppelgangers infiltrating our lives. Why do people still believe in hidden imposters controlling the world? Perhaps it's because the digital age has made the concept of hidden identities and manipulated realities more plausible than ever before. And then there's transhumanism, the next stage of shapeshifting. We are actively trying to alter ourselves, to transcend our biological limitations through biological enhancements, cybernetics, and even the potential of full consciousness transfer. The transhumanist quest for transcendence echoes the ancient desire to become like the gods, to break free of the limitations of mortality. Myths are filled with heroes and deities who sought to transcend their human forms, and now we are attempting to do the same through technology. At what point do we stop being human? At what point does our quest for transformation become a loss of self? Our online personas can be seen as modern manifestations of the shadow self, the hidden aspects of our personalities we project onto the digital world. Just as Jung explored the darker corners of the psyche, we now explore the darker corners of our identities through our online avatars. These are the questions that echo through the corridors of our technological advancements, questions that remind us that the fear of shapeshifters is not just a myth, but a mirror reflecting our own ever-evolving nature. We tell ourselves that identity is fixed, that we are who we've always been. But myths of shapeshifters have endured for centuries because they whisper a terrifying truth. We are never as solid as we believe. What if you woke up tomorrow and something felt wrong? Not a missing memory, not a misplaced thought, but a fundamental shift so subtle you couldn't quite name it. A hesitation in your voice, a flicker of unfamiliarity in your own reflection. Would you notice if you had already changed? Shapeshifters haunt us because they erode the boundary between self and stranger, between ally and enemy, between what is real and what only pretends to be. And when the time comes, when the masks finally slip, will you be the one unmasking the monster? Or will you be the one wearing its face?